In Mexico, authorities reported the situation on the U.S. Mexico border is normalizing after the Title 42 expired. In Turkey, citizens reflect less than 24 hours ahead of the nation's key general elections. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he will honor the election results. And in Senegal, citizens took to the streets to demonstrate against President Macky Sall's intention to run for a third term in office. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Mexico, Foreign Secretary Marcelo Ebrard reported that the situation on the U.S. Mexico border is normalizing after the events of midnight when Title 42 expired to contain migration. At President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's press conference at the National Palace, Ebrard read an updated report from the Ministry of Defense, according to which 10,000 migrants remain at the border of Ciudad Juárez and Matamoros, the ones with the highest concentration in the former and 5,000 in the latter. He considered that these are normal numbers for those two places, the one with the highest flow of migrants. There are also 500 in Baja California and 800 in Tamaulipas. The Foreign Secretary added that the migrants who applied for work and many others are being attended to, and that the conditions at the shelter are improving. Tens of thousands of people are expected to try to cross from Mexico to the United States in coming days after the end of Title 42, a pandemic-era rule that made it near impossible for migrants to apply for asylum at the border. At a press conference on Thursday, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said his department was ready to face the influx of migrants and referred to the support needed from Congress.
Let me say that our plan is as follows, in just very simple terms. We provide lawful, safe, and orderly pathways for people to come to the United States when they qualify for relief. We have a security and a humanitarian obligation to cut the smugglers out. For those individuals, those people who do not use our lawful pathways, we have tougher consequences to deliver to them if they arrive at our southern border and cross illegally. What we need is Congress to act, to pass legislative reform. Everyone agrees that our immigration system has been broken for more than 2 decades. We need Congress to act. We also need Congress to resource the Department of Homeland Security with the personnel, equipment, facilities, and transportation ability that we have requested and we have not received.
U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez to the White House, where they will discuss several topics as Spain takes on the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union in July. Sánchez told Biden that Spain has many objectives, including reindustrializing the European Union and strengthening the region's ties with Latin America, a part of the world where Spain and the U.S. have common interests in democracy, prosperity, and safe, regular, and orderly migratory routes. The White House assured that both leaders pledged to deepen the economic cooperation of the American continent through the Inter-American Development Bank. In the bilateral agenda, they discussed another issue that has been on the table for some time, the transfer of the plutonium-contaminated land in Palomares, where 4 U.S. nuclear bombs were dropped 57 years ago. At the end of the meeting at the White House with President Biden, the president of the Spanish government, Pedro Sánchez, offered some declarations.
I believe that both governments agree and have a very similar vision on how to deal with the fight against illegal migration. And I believe that the best way to build a regular, orderly migratory system, respectful of the human rights and migrants, and therefore against the mafias that traffic and gamble with the lives of many human beings, both in America and in Africa in their transit to Europe, is to promote positive incentive to legal migration. We also talked about the digital revolution, artificial intelligence, digital rights, and energy transformation linked to climate change. I think the two governments are very much aligned on everything that has to do with climate goals.
In Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro shared a working meeting with the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, Apollinaire Joaquimson Kialem de Tampela. This meeting took place in the context of the 20th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Caracas and Ouagadougou, and is aimed at strengthening cooperation and friendship between the two countries. In this context, it was learned that the agenda of the high official will focus on strengthening bilateral cooperation in areas such as agriculture, mining, oil, education, trade, and culture, within the diplomacy of peace based on respect and self-determination of the peoples. Also in Venezuela, according to the monthly report of the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries published on Thursday, oil production increased by 7.4% last month compared to March. This country had not produced more than 800,000 barrels per day of crude since December 2021, when it pumped an average of 871,000 barrels per day, and since then it had fallen to 669,000 barrels per day at the end of last year. Pedro Sánchez, Minister of Petroleum and President of state-owned PDVSA, assured last February that the country's oil industry would grow during the first 4 months of 2023. The expectations for the nation to increase its production improved after the U.S. company Chevron received last November the approval to resume the production and extraction of oil or derivatives from the joint ventures with PDVSA. Both companies signed contracts in December in Caracas for the continuation of the joint production of oil in the country. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news, updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The day of reflection is underway in Turkey prior to the presidential and legislative elections on Sunday. The main candidates are trying to seek the highest amount of votes to achieve victory among the more than 64 million voters summoned to vote. The current president candidate for re-election, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, expressed on Friday his will to respect the electoral results to be held on Sunday in the Eurasian nation. Polls point to a very close result following the polarization of the election as a result of the resignation of one of the three main candidates. If a runoff election is necessary, it will be held on May 28th. And on Sunday, May 14th, elections will be held in Turkey, where the main candidates will be the opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu and the current president Recep Erdogan, who has closed his campaign this May 12th in Istanbul, where he's trying to get votes in view of the tight results offered by the polls. Our correspondent Sergio Rodrigo has more details.
Thousands of citizens have gathered in Istanbul for the closing of the campaign of the candidate for re-election, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is running for a second consecutive presidential term in the elections. The president has ruled the country since 2002 as prime minister, and following the 2017 constitutional referendum, he serves as the country's president.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan has mobilized all the projects of the last 100 years. Erdogan is the one. He's the only leader who has achieved world peace, the world peace. And Erdogan is today a world leader who has made all the projects.
Erdogan is planning a monitoring plan in the country and has called on his voters to mobilize in view of the possibility of an opposition victory.
If Erdogan loses, there will be more wars in the world. The PKK will be freer, and Turkish people will have less right to speak out.
Election polls show a closer result by narrow margin. The opposition could win after the support of 6 opposition parties and displace the support of the second largest opposition party in Turkey, the Republican People's Party. Political experts say the vote will be decided in a few districts and the difference may be minimal.
In my opinion, the most recent results of the polls are credible. The opposition and the common opposition candidate, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, has the win at his back. In the latest poll, Kılıçdaroğlu is leading by 5 points, but in other polls, the difference is between 2 or 3 points.
The last hours of campaigns have become crucial for candidates seeking the vote of the undecided or the abstentionists, which could tip the balance between the ruling party, justice and development, which has governed the country for 20 years, and the opposition.
Sergio Rodrigo y Carlos Gil, teleSUR, Istanbul.
Ahead of Turkey's election on Sunday, a member of the Central Decision Board of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, AKP party, Harun Ermagan, assures the people will give them one more term to serve this country.
The reaction that we see from the electorates on our local events, rallies, is that people will continue to support President AK Party and Erdogan. And in fact, we have seen historic high participation to our rally in Istanbul with 1.7 million participation is telling us that people will going to give President Erdogan and AK Party one more term to serve this country. The Turkish people, like I said, have a very strong culture of democracy. 87% participation is a way different, very higher than any other European country can get. And people show that they want their voices heard through ballot boxes. And of course, anyone would respect whatever decision comes out from the ballot boxes.
The Central Election Commission of Turkey decided not to cancel the ballots issued for the withdrawn candidate of the presidential elections, Muharrem İnce, leader of the Memleket Party, informed on Saturday the president of the party, Ahmet Yener. Quoted by Turkish agency İHA, Yener, head of the CEC, explained that at the election board meeting held it was agreed that withdrawals made after the call will not be valid, and İnce's withdrawal from the presidential candidacy was made after the first ballot. Voting at polling stations for Turks living abroad took place from April 27th to May 9th, with a turnout of more than 1.8 million people, and Ince appeared on the ballots. Presidential and parliamentary elections in Turkey are scheduled for next May 14th. Initially, the list of candidates included 4 persons, but on Thursday, Ince announced the withdrawal of his candidacy 3 days before the elections. And first-time voters in Ankara shared their thoughts on Saturday about Turkey's elections as they anticipated casting their ballots.
I have expectations for the economy. In general, we have problems with our education system, which I expect will be improved. I want these things to get better. I will be voting for the first time, so whoever has the most appropriate pledges will get my vote. God willing, it'll all be for the best, for the people and the country. I'll be voting for the first time and I'm excited. God willing, the one who deserves it will win. God willing, it will be a safe election, and I'm also curious about the outcome.
teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. On Saturday, an Mi-8 helicopter and a Su-34 fighter bomber crashed in Bryansk province bordering Ukraine. The helicopter went down in the Klinci district while the fighter bomber crashed in the vicinity of the Starodub municipality. According to local telegram channels, 2 people on board the Mi-8 as well as the pilot and navigator of the Su-34 died. After these 2 incidents were confirmed, the plan to intercept saboteurs who could be linked to the downing of the aircraft was activated, details telegram channel MASH. So far, neither the Defense Ministry nor other security bodies have commented on the 2 events. Shortly afterward, Bryansk Oblast Governor Alexander Bogomaz confirmed the downing of a helicopter in the town of Klinci, where 1 civilian was injured as a result of the crash. In Russia, the Defense Ministry denounced the use of Ukrainian forces of long-range missiles against civilian targets in the Donbas region. The missiles were provided to Ukraine by the United Kingdom, which was the first country to deliver this type of projectiles.
On 12 May, at around 6 p.m. Moscow time, Ukrainian Air Force combat aircraft carried out a missile strike on the polymer product company Polypak and the meat processing plant Milan in the city of Luhansk. Storm Shadow air-to-air missiles supplied to the Kiev regime by Great Britain were used for the strike, despite London's declaration that these weapons would not be used against civilian targets. As a result of the strike, a fire broke out on the territory of Luhansk's food and chemical industry factories. There is damage to nearby residential buildings. Civilians were injured, including 6 children.
Germany's government has announced a new military aid package to Ukraine with a total value of $2.9 billion, the largest amount provided by Berlin since the beginning of Kiev-Moscow conflict. The delivery plans were confirmed by the country's defense ministry, according to local media. The package, agreed in recent days during confidential negotiations, will be unveiled on Sunday during the presentation of Carlo Magno Prize to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Among the military equipment, Berlin intends to equip Kiev with at least 30 Leopard 1 tanks, 18 self-propelled mortars, 18 Gepard anti-aircraft armored vehicles, 20 Marder infantry vehicles, and over 200 armored fighting vehicles. The President of Italy, Sergio Mattarella, offered his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky his military and financial support in the midst of the conflict with Russia. In a meeting between the 2 leaders in the framework of Zelensky's official visit to Rome held at the Palazzo del Quirinale, Mattarella spoke about the conflict between Moscow and Kiev and ratified his country's full commitment to Ukraine in short and long-term military and financial matters. The Italian president also conveyed to Zelensky his country's support for Ukraine's candidacy to meet necessary parameters in the process of its integration into the European Union. Zelensky arrived in Rome on Saturday morning as the first step of a small European tour that will take him to Belgium on Sunday. In Senegal, citizens took to the streets to demonstrate their rejection of President Macky Sall's refusal to rule out seeking a 3rd term in office. Groups of citizens mobilized on the streets of Dakar, the country's capital, in response to a call for demonstrations carried out by a group called Movement of Senegal's Living Forces, F24, referring to the election date scheduled for February 24, 2024. Demonstrators expressed their rejection of Sall's refusal to rule out running for a 3rd term as president, a measure they claim will be unconstitutional. In this sense, they asked him to leave power while demanding the release of over 300 political prisoners.
We came here to liberate Senegal, to tell Macky Sall that he has to stop his dictatorial path. He only has to release the political prisoners. We are fed up. We don't want him anymore. We tell him enough. He only has to leave for Senegal. We want peace. We don't want problems with anyone.
We came to heed the call of the F24 coalition. We have 3 principles to fight for: to say no to Macky Sall's 3rd candidacy, to demand the release of political prisoners, and to ask Macky Sall to stop eliminating his opponents who want to participate in the election. This is our struggle, and we are motivated to go all the way.
Sudan's warring military factions signed a commitment to respect humanitarian principles in their spiraling conflict but did not reach a ceasefire. The agreement was reached during talks in the Saudi port city of Jeddah and commits both sides, in general terms, to letting badly needed humanitarian assistance after looting and attacks targeted aid in the impoverished Africa's third largest country in the area. The declaration calls for the restoration of electricity, water and other basic services, the withdrawal of security forces from hospitals and respectful burial of the dead. Nearly 1 month after the eruption of violence that has killed more than 750 people, injured 5,000 and displaced more than 900,000 others, the two sides promised to protect civilians, but nothing looked set to change immediately. Sudan's ambassador to the UN, Al-Harith Idris Al-Harith Mohammed, warned the humanitarian situation is dire in Sudan.
From our side, from the government side, there will be commitments, for example, to the respect of humanitarian law. There will be commitment to refrain from attack that may be expected to cause incidental civilian harm. Despite its already limited resources and capacity, the government of Sudan is working hard to deal with the humanitarian situation. Many citizens were enforced to leave their homes by the rebels and due to the severe damage to many public facilities, internal movements or crossing borders to the destinations. There is urgent need for humanitarian services.
The permanent representative of Sudan to the United Nations also recalled that humanitarian assistance operations must maintain neutrality and must not interfere in the country's political issues.
Humanitarian assistance operations should be conducted on the basis of the internationally recognized guiding principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence, and that the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national unity must be fully respected. All aid workers and organizations should refrain from politicization of the humanitarian aid or link it to political considerations or conditionalities.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.